Great. I will call to order the Pickering School Building Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Nicholson,
Present.
Dr. Alvarez,
Present.
Mr. Bertino, Member Castellanos, Councilor Chakutis, Mr. Donovan,
Present.
Ms. Drago,
Present.
Member Gately,
Present.
Ms. Gerardo, Mr. Kolokitis, Councilor LaPierre,
Present.
Mr. Makua,
Present.
Mr. Mannion,
Present.
Mr. Marlin,
Present.
Mayor McGee, Councilor Meany, Ms. Miller, Mr. Ridley,
Present.
Mr. Rittershouse, Ms. Ruggiero,
Present.
Mr. Smart.
Present.
All right, we do have a quorum of 12.
Great. Let's get started.
All right, share my screen. Okay, that's not the beginning. All right, can you all hear me still?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So today's agenda, we'll go through the meeting minutes. We'll give you a quick budget update. The design team has a whole bunch of renderings and images that they're going to take us through, kind of the latest and greatest. We'll give you a construction update. Consiglia will walk us through the progress on site, as well as the schedule, where it's been and what it is now. We'll go through quickly procurement, how we are doing there, schedule update, and the next upcoming meetings. So first order of business would be meeting minutes that were in the packet from November 13th.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Fantastic. Thank you all. Lynn, would you please take everyone through the budget?
Yes, in the November monthly report, you should have received the budget status report. We are 34% committed to date and have expended 13%. And we're about halfway through the bid process. And so you should be able to track that on each of the division lines, where in terms of the OPM bidding line, the AE bidding line, and then 50% through getting near the end of the pre-construction invoices. So in terms of our cash flow, we're still tracking behind our original projections. And this has a lot to do with the schedule slippage, which we'll talk about later on in the process. But we do have a recovery of that cash flow as we proceed through the process. And you'll see we end up with the same target for final expenditures. Any questions on the budget before we move to RDA's presentation?
All right. So I'll yield the screen and let Jean take the screen.
Hello, everyone. Can you see this title?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I'll switch the slide so it's a little more interesting to look at. I hope. Yep, there we go. So what we have spent the last 6 months doing is really working very hard to finalize the design for the building, kind of based on what we'd shown you in the past. But there's an immense amount of detailing and all sorts of things that have to be put on paper for the bidders to price out. So what I thought was, since we put the drawings out for the final bidding a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, that I just run you through kind of where we ended up. And like I say, a lot of it's just picking up on what we had kind of gone through with you before. But I just thought it was a good time to kind of refresh everybody, since it's going to start coming out of the ground at some point soon. So we always start with this view from Magnolia Ave, and you know, we have this new community amenity here that's going to be up on the street with the parking, and we all know Sisson is back here in the background, and we have a 5-story school, which we've broken down into kind of a 2-story high community. I'll say community level. It's all school, but you know, this is the double high cafeteria, that connects to the double high gym, and obviously the main lobby. And then we have kind of this divider here, which we've treated just with transparent, a lot of glass. And it has the media center and the movement rooms, and kind of around the corner, around the back, it has other academic, you know, rooms. But what we're trying to symbolize is, you know, we're putting a face out to the community, saying that these are all important spaces. And the 7th and 8th grade are up on these upper 2 floors. And we've always envisioned this, and you can't really trust the colors, you know, precisely as you're looking at them, because, you know, we'll go through and we get actual brick samples. Computers are all a little bit tricky, and everyone's screen is a little bit different. But what we've always envisioned is having a solid base, you know, like a big, nice, heavy base, and then kind of having a lighter top on it. And you can see how it kind of aligns with the 2-story at Sisson. And, you know, I don't feel like it's too overwhelming, especially from this view. You'll see later, I don't know if, you know, we've talked about it in the past, but this is where we had that media center, and they'll have a wonderful view out to Flax Pond. Then we have those movement studios that are where my cursor is circling around, and they're connected to this outdoor space that we've created. We didn't have program space, we had a big roof area. And so we've been talking and labeling this kind of the learning deck, quote unquote. But you'll see later that there's a nice connection between the movement studio, where physical activities, dance or other learning activities, can take place outdoors in good weather. So I guess I'll skip back and forth, but one of the things we want to do is try to break down, you know, a vast expanse of brick, and get some patterning. And it looks very subtle here. And depending what bricks we end up selecting when it's all said and done, which again, we'll go through with you, what we've done is we've taken areas of the building, and we've actually kind of created some brick patterning that'll bring some shadow and some subtle breakdown. So in this slide, we've shown, you know, everything the same color, but because these bricks are staggered in and out as they're stacked, there's actually shadow lines that start to appear. And, you know, it'll start to, even if they are the same color, break down the facade into various panels. Getting a little bit closer, this is the view if you know, went around, parked, and then the front entrance has a nice canopy that tells people where the entry is. We have some nice big lettering on the school like we do at Thurgood Marshall. In this case, it's kind of freestanding. It's all secured, obviously, on top of the canopy. And then with the learning deck, we have some plantings, some planters, but this whole area up in here is glass wind guards. And so the idea is that if you're outside, you're elevated up. If you're in that media center, like I said before, everyone's going to have a real nice view. These are all community spaces, you know, they're not dedicated to one grade level. Everyone's going to have a nice view out to or over Flex Pond. So we had shown you this diagram back in June, and I might flip back to the elevations a little bit, but the way we were going to organize this space, just because it's not a long linear building where there's windows, you know, on each, you know, every room is on the outside of the building with a window. Just due to its shape, it's kind of like a donut. We have a lot of interior views or interior spaces, and they're all, you know, surrounded by corridors and circulation. And what we thought was we would pick up on what's actually happening in the plan and treat each one of these, we're calling them cores, as different colors, like, and so we're, you know, colorful cores and curves is kind of the way we organize the interiors of the building. And when I'm talking about curves, you know, I've highlighted every once in a while, you know, these prominent features with a red semicircle. And it kind of goes back to, you know, back to the exterior. We didn't want to bring these floors to a sharp point because it's not an efficient use of the square footage inside, but it's also kind of harsh. And we wanted to soften the building as it went around the corner. So we've kind of picked up on the idea of not only these cores being different colors, but also picking up on the idea of curves. And I'll show you that as we go through. So on the first floor plan, when you come in that front entrance, the administrative area, you know, controls it. There's that, and then we have this 2-story high lobby. And because it is an interior space for the music rooms and some of these classrooms on the second floor, we have a sizable skylight. So this lobby is going to be flooded with nice natural light. And when you walk in, you can just see a touch of the skylight up here. So I apologize, it's not the best view, but you're going to be looking at what we're calling like a feature wall. It's 2-story high. The music classrooms are going to be down on the lower level, and up on this level are going to be regular classrooms. And we have that set up with wood panels, but they look like wood, but it's actually plastic laminate. So it's easy to maintain and not easy to scratch. When you, there is this connection, which you'll see with what we've been calling a learning stair. So it's a stairway connection up to the second level, but it's also tiered seating so that you know, activities can take place down here, whether it's people spilling out from the music room or other academic activities. It's kind of like a lecture hall, but it's making use of that space in the lobby. I'm flipping around now. You have to imagine you're looking at the underside of the ceiling in that same area. And I'll show you some 3-dimensional views, but this is the upper portion of the lobby. And this is below this ceiling is where the learning stair is. And this is where that nice skylight is. This is the upper portion of the cafeteria. And there's a couple things I wanted to show. Just when we talk about these colorful cores, you're going to see a lot of curves also. So let's say, well, I'll show you. You know, this is what we decided we'd color it purple. When we get to the interiors, again, we'll pick colors with you or show you our suggestions and get your input. But for now, we just know that we're gonna have, you know, a color here, kind of designating this core in the lobby. But even where we have the staff lounge on the second floor, we have curved walls. And this is that kind of prominent feature on the outside on the end of the building where the masonry curves around the corner. The idea of taking a curve and turning it into a circle also comes into a lot of what we designed. And when you see the cafeteria, you know, a picture of what it might look like, these are all a bunch of circular light fixtures. And it kind of looks like the Milky Way, you know, if you think of it, because there's a lot of regular light fixtures and regular acoustic ceiling tiles in here. But what we wanted to do was, and it's very subtle, but it'll be kind of cool if people know about it. We wanted to pick up on the hydraulic connection stream that used to run between Sluice Pond up here on Broadway, used to run down into Flax. And this whole area is Magnolia Park right now. It was infilled, it was a marsh, which is why we had our soil issues. And this is well before the school was built, but you know, this is kind of the area where we're building right now. So anyway, the thought was that we could kind of honor what was going on in the site. We had to have lights anyway, and we want to break up this big ceiling. So we'll show you what we did kind of there. But if we're back down, coming just into the lobby, and this window goes into the administrative office, and the school resource officer has a very good view of what's going on. This is that learning stair. If you go kind of around the corner, these are the doors. They'll always be on hold opens, so they'll be open unless there's a fire alarm or some sort of emergency, at which point they'd shut automatically. But this is how you get down into the cafeteria. And then if you're upstairs, you'll see we have a bunch of windows on the inside, and some of these windows are going to look down into the cafeteria, and some, as you go around the corner, are going to look down into the gymnasium. But if there's ever an activity going on this learning stair, you know, this upper hallway kind of acts almost like a balcony. So it's going to be a very lively and very nice space. You can see here, we're starting to, you know, we've used purple here to kind of designate, hey, this is part of one of those core areas in the middle of the building that, you know, if they're all a little bit different color, it's going to help people understand where they are in the building. So heading down this hallway, you know, you're heading down into the sixth grade academic area, but these are those windows that kind of line the hallway. And as I said, some of them will look down into the cafeteria, some will look down into the gym. So this gives you kind of an idea, you know, if you're up on that second level, you'll be able to, you know, see what's going on in the cafeteria and feel a sense of connection. If you're down in the cafeteria, this is kind of looking back toward Magnolia Park. Gives you a little sense of, you know, how we chose to break up this big expanse of acoustic ceiling tile by just bringing this, I'll call it a Milky Way, you know, through the cafeteria. And you'll notice there's really many areas where we're kind of curving the wall to pick up on, you know, what was going on the outside.
Gene, can I interrupt for a moment? Flory's got his hand up.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Yes.
Gene, just
Please
real
do.
quick, back to the learning stairs. Any provision for AV? You know, it can be a great place for performance arts, you know, and just from the rendering. Any provision there?
Yeah, there's speakers, Flory, and there's
Yep.
the ability to have microphones down on
Perfect.
the lower level.
Sounds good.
We did think about not very long because it didn't make sense having a projection screen of some sort. But
Yeah.
the space is so flooded with natural light, and there really was nowhere to, you know, the cafeteria and the gym and the black
Right.
box theater all have projection screen ability.
No problem. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And I guess if people want to just interrupt me, I'm so focused on my screen, I'm not watching the, the Hollywood squares here.
Jean,
Deb, did
can
you have
I
a
ask-
question?
Yes, Jean, can I ask a question? The railings, what's the height of those railings and the safety for the middle schoolers with those?
It's 42 inches, which is what the code requires. So that's 3.5 feet, Deb. And it's the same height as the railings on the bridge at Thurgood Marshall that go between the two wings. If that helps at all. I don't think there's been any issues with those.
No, there hasn't. All right, thank you.
Gene, I thought we increased those to 48 inches at Thurgood Marshall.
I don't think we did, Lynn, but I'll double
Can you
check.
just check?
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, I'll measure. We'll make sure they get measured and I'll let you know. Because whatever they are, that's what we should do.
Yeah, okay, that's not a problem. So Deb, if you do remember to do that, let us, email us so we can amend the bidding documents. Any other questions? I can't see everybody's hands. Craig, just let me know if there are.
Will do.
So, then you're looking at a little further down the hallway, there's views down into the gymnasium, and it's not as large as Thurgood Marshall's gym, which was kind of double size, but it is large enough to have a substantial number of bleachers. And that's why this school has those two movement studios, because MSBA acknowledged that you need some more physical space. And we just didn't have room on this site for a larger gym with everything else we were doing. When you get up onto the upper 3 floors, that's where the learning spaces are. Well, they're all learning spaces, but this is where the grade levels are. So 6th grade, 7th grade, and the top floor is 8th grade. And when we're talking about these quote unquote colorful cores, we're talking about these areas here that are internal to the building and don't have, windows like on the outside. The bathroom core, obviously not an issue. We left that the same color vertically throughout the plan. But then, this happens to be the audio visual studio, and this happens to be a staff area and extended learning space and the elevator core. So we are planning to do everything here, whether it's tile or paint or flooring or ceiling, with a specific color. We've shown green here, and you'll see green in the renderings. But again, we need to come to you with our thoughts when we actually get all the materials from the various contractors and we have our palette. And then on the upper floor, this cluster of learners would be around this pink core, and there's another cluster down here that would be around the yellow core. So we've put things in here that don't require views and that people are not sitting in all day. And we've also put light wells so that there's skylights up on the roof and they bring natural light down into the center of these floors as well. I highlighted a few areas that we wanted to show you, which, the media center, the media center is actually this whole L shape here. That's all media center square footage, that the MSBA is reimbursing. So it's the big, I'll call it a reading room, but it's really being thought of as a multi-purpose room, I'll say. So we've set it up for all sorts of different activities, connected with a big opening to a maker lab, and then connected with another big opening to a computer lab. So the idea is these may operate separately if these barn doors are closed, or the whole thing might be opened up depending how the district wants to use these spaces in the future. And then I had mentioned before, so I'm sorry to repeat, but there are those two movement studios, which again is, kind of some of that PE space. And they do open up onto the learning deck. So, movement activities can flow outside or inside. There's also a folding partition here. So, in inclement weather, if it made sense, you could have a larger space than two normal size spaces. But, again, the little smiley faces, just, trying to make some connections between all the walls on these colorful cores are, curved, and, we're curving around here, and we have a lot of curves in the plan, and it's all done with narrow vertical tile so that we can go around these corners and still have it flow very smoothly.
Gene, are those walls solid on the elevation for the classrooms? Oh, you have glass partition up top.
Oh, we have so we have a regular door with a side light,
Okay.
Lori, and
Yeah.
then we have a movable glass wall here, and we have a pair of doors here that'll open up. So the idea was, based on other middle schools that we had gone to with folks, that activities, each team is 4 teachers. There's a science teacher, and then 3, English, social studies, and math. And so call this a team, and each team has the ability to have 2 classrooms flow together if they want, or they can keep the door closed. And they also have the ability to one of the classrooms, or maybe maybe both. Anyway, they have the ability to flow out into this extended learning space. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, my question was really surrounding around bringing lights in from the exterior wall to the
Oh,
core
yeah.
spaces. But if the walls were solid from top to bottom, then I guess those lights are not traveling. But you mentioned earlier that there are some skylight maybe in some of these areas.
Yes, there's a couple things happening. There's a skylight above this area, so it's pretty sizable. There's a
Okay.
light shaft that goes up to the roof. And then these doors to the stairwell are very tall and wide, and they're on hold opens, again,
Yeah.
unless a fire alarm or some other emergency happens. So the end of this stairwell is all glass, and we expect natural light to be kind of pooling in this area and pooling in this area.
Yeah.
So there'd be views for sure, and then depending how these get treated, these might be frosted glass, might be clear glass, but I think sometimes the teachers want some more privacy. Anyway, there's certainly views to the windows here.
Yeah. Thanks.
And then we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but we picked up on that theme of round, on all these corners. This is the ceiling plan, but we have all these funky places where the ceilings are not coming into each other at 90 degrees. They're skewed just because of the shape of the site and the building. So, we go from acoustic ceiling tile in a regular rectangular pattern to some drywall ceilings that have a round light fixture in them. So, this breaks up what otherwise would be a really long corridor into smaller pieces, which we're always trying to do. And it also, I keep coming back to, the way we organized it was around these cores that have color and the curves. So this is one of the extended learning spaces. And though this looks like it's a solid white panel, just the way that this rendering program was working, this is actually glass. So, you know, these I'll call them holes in the floor that are letting the light down are not, they're not open to each floor. There's glass, so the light can come in. This is actually transparent, flooring, like you can see that tack board, you know, through the corner. But this is one of those extended learning spaces that's in the middle of two teams, and each team will have their own display area. There'll be the ability for mobile technology. There'll be the, you know, a pipe grid with electrical reels to do maker activities. And this is an example of where we're showing, you know, this core, you know, let's say it turns out to be green in the end. And then down the hall, you can see the, you know, what we showed as blue, which would be the bathroom core. And if there's lockers in the core, we have them colored. And if there's lockers on the opposite wall, we have them just a nice neutral. And this happens to show one of those wide openings into, you know, one of those classrooms I was talking about. This is just another view in the extended learning space. You know, we've set it up with teaching walls. As I said, there's portable, you know, the school makes use of portable video screens. And this is showing a little more transparency, but you know, this is one of those light wells that's bringing light down into the middle of the building. And you know, maybe another one of these at the other end is, you know, maybe it's making use of purple. And again, this white is actually glass, so it didn't end up showing too well. But every team will have display. They'll all have a teaching surface. They'll all have storage for grade level activities that might take place out in these flexible areas. And this is an example of the vertical tile pattern that we'll have. And because they're narrow, we can, you know, we can kind of segment them around these curved walls without it, you know, very smoothly, I'll just say. And, you know, at those intersections, we have these round light fixtures. So in the media center, it's on the second floor, and it's where there's, you know, a prominent bow or bow in the facade of the building. And we picked up on that by breaking this large ceiling into a series of curves. So, you know, the center of it is a big circle with one of those pipe grids and electrical reels. So it's flexible for maker activities. And then as we go around the perimeter of the room, you know, one other one at the bow is a pure circle, but the others are just kind of broken up. And this is kind of an, you know, it's an image of what we're thinking, which is there's a lot of acoustic ceiling tiles, but there's, again, it's broken up so that there's gypsum board, and we're also creating these shapes that serve to break up what otherwise would be a big flat pancake. Then this is one of those openings. This could be closed or open, but this room over here is that maker lab that connects to the big reading room. And again, the reading room, we're not stuffing it. We're not showing it with a lot of bookcases. It's really going to be a multi-purpose room in the district. We can fit it out any way they want with furnishings. Just another view looking kind of through to the maker and computer labs, and you know, across to there's a video editing studio beyond. So we have some glass at the media center, And then on the other side of the hallway, we have glass where the AV studio students would be working in a computer lab, editing their videos. And you're not seeing much of the view inside here, but this is inside one of the movement studios. And we just wanted to show you, we've set it up with a big wide door, kind of like car dealers have, you know, so that they can open the two leaves and get a vehicle into their showroom. And outside, you know, the floor levels align. And like I say, in inclement weather, you know, movement activities could be happening inside, but in nice weather, activities could spill out onto the deck. And there are planters in the plan. And then where you see these posts, there's actually glass panels. So it's a nice windscreen, and it's going to allow that view out over Flax Pond. And then this is, this is part of the skylight that's going to bring light down into the lobby. You can kind of get a sense for how we want to break up the facade with different brick panels. And this is all concrete pavers, very simple. One of the alternates that we're asking Consigli to price up is to, you know, instead of having concrete pavers that drop into this grid, to have some hardwood pavers that would drop in. And whether we end up doing that or not will be determined. But there are seats, there are planters, and we kind of have the ability to create various areas using this flooring if we think that's an important thing to do.
Gene, Tom's got his hand up.
Sure. Hey, Tom.
Hi, Gene. Just quick, how high is the glass panels going to be height wise?
7 feet.
Okay. That's
So
all.
it's seven. There's part of it, Tom, where you can walk. You can just walk up to it, and that at that point it's 7 feet tall. And then there's other parts where there's a planter box, and you know that 7 foot just keeps going this way, but these glass panels might only be 4 feet.
Okay.
You know what I
Thank
mean?
you.
Yep. So that's kind of where we, you know, kind of big picture where it ended up so far.
Brandon, are you ready to deliver?
Yes.
That's good.
If no one has any questions, I mean, I can go back to slides or I can stop sharing and turn it back over to Craig.
I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you so much, Gene. That's very exciting.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's really neat seeing those renderings give a real feel for what the project's going to look like inside and out.
Yeah, and they're starting to build it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So quick update on procurement. Before last meeting, we had pre-qualified the trade contractors for this final package. Since the last SBC meeting, bid package 3, which was the geothermal scope and some pre-purchased mechanical and electrical equipment, has been awarded. And now we're in the process of the bid package 4, which is the main package, has gone out to the bidders. That went out December 4th. And so now we're waiting, we're answering RFIs and waiting for those bids to come in. Those are due January 14th. And then once those have been received, Consigli will start putting them together and build their GMP. And that's anticipated for mid-February.
It might be worth noting that we extended the bid timeline, basically because particularly the window manufacturers go away for 2 weeks, and bidders would not be able to get all their bids in time to make the earlier bid date. So because it didn't really affect our overall final completion of the GMP, we pushed it out so that we can make sure that we capture as many, we don't limit our competition on the on the bids.
Good point. Thank you, Lynn. All right, any questions about that? If not, I'd like to turn things over to Brandon to walk us through our construction progress.
Yes, good evening, everyone. You're seeing here our logistics plan that is pretty similar for the last couple months. So we've now bottomed out the excavation in what will be the new building footprint. So those excavators are not in there right now. We've started with our ground improvement scope, which I have some pictures of afterwards. They consist of wraps or rammed aggregate piers. Essentially, it's going to be an additional support underneath all of the foundation and slab elements due to the composition of the soils to help ensure that the building is stable enough on the current location. You'll see we're still working through some of the site soils and things as we go through photos. So the laydown area doesn't quite look like this yet, but we are continuing to get there as we continue to haul off different soil characterization categories. This is going to be our next phase as we get deep into the winter. I'll talk about some milestones afterwards and what you're going to see come the new year, February, March, April, May, as we really get into the swing of things of seeing this building come up out of the ground. Handful of progress photos. So we've been working diligently on all underground utilities. Our sewer is now tied in to the city sewer system. We've removed the old connections and did our whole turnover this past Saturday out of the existing Pickering school, which, if we remember back from the summer, came through that new retaining wall that we put in. On the right is the layout of those wraps that I talked about earlier. So they've now installed about half the wraps associated with the slab of the building, doing anywhere between 60 and 80 per day, starting on Monday this week. On the left was the logistics setup to do that sewer tie-in this past Saturday. So that's now complete, and we're able to give back that portion of the temporary playground that we had taken over.
You should see a lot less water on the site as well.
Certainly should, yes. And on the right is the picture of the rig that is doing the wrap install. So it looks a lot like a drill rig. That's how we're installing these aggregate piers. And you'll see this one for the rest of this week. And after the beginning of the new year, you're going to see a larger rig that comes in to do all of our deeper foundational elements instead of the more shallow ones that are designed underneath the slabs. I will share my screen and give you a quick run through of the drone. So this does go back to December 9th, so it's about a week and a half old. So some things have changed, but as you can see from the bird's eye view, we've bottomed out in the excavation for the building. As I said, we've now started, if you've driven past it, you've seen the rig this week installing those rammed aggregate piers, getting ready to start excavating for footings, and then start with concrete after the new year. Continue to see piles change as we're able to remove different types of soil off site, managing that within our RAM plan with all the consultants on site. We did remove another batch of soil from here beginning this week. And as Lynn alluded to, much of this water, now that we have connection to the existing sewer system, some of it while we dewater, we're able to get it off site with the help of Lynn Water and Sewer and help mitigate some of that surface ponding that we've been dealing with. We still have our protection of the existing MWA water line. We will be putting in a third crossing, which will allow for better logistics around that kind of choke point as we start to get deliveries from the laydown area up to the building. When you start to see cranes and lulls and everything, it'll be very key to have a full ability to drive around that designated area. As this comes around, zoom out for me. So you'll begin to see this area further develop into our temporary laydown contractor parking. The goal is to get some more gravel laid down and do some temporary paving. It'll help keep the site both clean and safe as we get through the winter and the next year to 2 years of heavy construction through here. All right, I will stop sharing this screen, Craig, if you want to take back over.
Thank you.
So with the group here tonight, we wanted to dig into a bit of a comparison of where we thought we'd be right now, and where we really are and where we think we're going to be come the end of this project. So as we've talked through starting this spring really in meetings, we had some impediments with some different issues I'll get into specifically, but we know we had some MEPA approval issues amongst some other things. But you'll see on the center column here, it has what was our April 2024 schedule with milestone dates that our team creates, and then it is handed out to the subcontractors, and ultimately that's what we bought with the bid package 2 structural subs. And on the right next to it, you see what our current milestone dates are. But what I want to really highlight here is although the front end has pushed, you can see that column on the right. When you do the math, we've been able to use a lot of strategic schedule recovery tools that we have, resequencing some activities, beginning to introduce some overlapping of various trades where it makes sense within the confines of the building and different sequencing, and really fine-tune durations with the subs that we do have onboarded. You can see that delayed start really dwindle as we get from right after the new year here until September. So what is showing right now to these activities as a delay of 11 weeks, when we come September, strategically we'll be at a point where that activity of building weather tight in mid-September is only a week and a half behind and still in plenty of time to get us to that 12/28 final substantial completion.
I want to make one comment about this before we move on. We have been struggling to keep our end date, and we've managed to do that so far, but it has some implications. And one of those is we've kind of shortened our time frame for the fit out of the school. And that's something that we're going to have to work closely with the city on to make sure that we can get the furniture in and be ready for January 4th, 2027 opening. We've done it before. We did it with the Thurgood Marshall, but it requires a lot of stacking of the technology installation with finishing up the construction for substantial completion, and it requires a quick turnover for the furniture install. And again, like I said, we've done it before with Thurgood Marshall, but it's going to take a lot of pre-planning to make sure that we can accomplish that.
Lynn, who's managing the FF&E? Is it you guys or another
We
PM?
have, Gene has a consultant on his staff, but we work closely with them to make sure that we can, you know, that it works with the construction schedule as well.
Okay.
Mike Donovan.
Yes, Brandon, how much time did you figure into your schedule for the coming winter for lost time for winter conditions?
I'd have to double check exactly what those dates were, Mike, as some of the activities have moved of what we were planning, right? We did plan to have concrete happening through the beginning of the winter. I can get back to you on the exact number of days for what we have for weather days. Obviously, we're hoping to have a mild winter, but we do have the plans in place to make sure we can continue to be productive through the winter with the cold temperatures.
And any just costs associated to all these delay and changes to make up those out days, Brandon?
Right now, with the tools that we've been able to implement, so we've eaten up float on the project and we've resequenced some subs. There's no direct cost right now. with each GMP, we do put in as a team some overtime allowances.
All right.
That if we feel as a group, we see these milestones coming and we need that overtime to be able to get there. As a group, we'd make that decision to work that extra overtime. But there's no direct cost right now. I do have a cost analysis on the next slide here that actually shows some benefits to some of the time that everyone put in, even though it took longer. We're actually able to get some savings due to some teamwork from the group here.
So Brandon, you don't believe that delay of starting the foundations from November till mid-January will incur additional costs for heating of the concrete blanketing, et cetera, to keep versus pouring it in November?
We carried an allowance knowing that whether it be elevated slabs or foundational elements, we'd be do some sort of concrete activity in the winter, Mike. So although instead of doing slabs earlier and being in the tail end of that winter, now it's really foundations. We do have that winter conditions allowance with the requirements to get through this winter with concrete. So I still feel that we'll be able to work within the parameters of the allowance that we put together.
So you don't believe there'll be any increase in the general conditions cost due to the delayed start here with the foundations?
No, I do not.
Plus, I think we do have another opportunity with the GMP coming up in February to analyze where we're at. And create allowances if we think we need them, and shift costs.
Brandon, did you want me to skip to the next slide, or do you want to do this one?
I'll go through this one quick. I just wanted to highlight for the group here what we have worked on, what you've seen done through the last handful of meetings, well, really starting in June, right? So we've worked on a lot of activities here. On the left side of the sheet, on the right is what you're going to start to see. So you're going to see a lot more activity. That be delivery trucks, concrete trucks. Come end of February, early March, you're going to see a crane come into play. So it really is going to morph into a much more active site as we get out of the ground here, and we see more and more activities start. So this is what I alluded to earlier, just breaking down some of the sticking points on our start, harkening back to the beginning of the summer and when we're supposed to be on site versus some issues that kept us from getting truly started. We also looked at some cost benefits. So for an example, the soil testing, characterization, and disposal, we've had some hiccups in getting certain types of soil off the site, but we all as a group got together when we put that initial GMP, carried a certain soil allowance. We've been tracking it very heavily, making sure that not only are we going to stay within it, but right now we're seeing the potential for $500,000 savings from that allowance, which obviously then the city can decide or the project decides to use to fund something else. So anytime we can save money, it's obviously a benefit to everyone here. Geothermal, we benefit from a fantastic buy as we work through that design this entire summer into the last month or so, where we saved almost $500,000 based on the last estimate budget. Ground improvement was something that started a little late due to some very in-depth coordination, making sure that we're providing the best possible product here for the city, knowing there are concerns with slab settlement, making sure we're getting our settlement numbers into the areas they truly need to be, so that there won't be issues in the future. That did require some additional money that's being funded from an allowance. But at the end of the day, we do think that the extra time put in is going to be much more valuable to the city, and we're able to absorb the extra money into the GMP.
This is just quickly the overall schedule, targeting where we are now in December to the end of 2024, and indicating that we are still tracking the January 4th, 2027 school opening. And as I said, we're going to be shortening up instead of having the 2 months for the technology and FF&E and move. We've really shortened that time frame up significantly. So that's something we're going to have to start working on earlier than expected to make sure that we can get it all done within the time frame that we have available.
I just want to pause, see if there's any questions either for Brandon or Lynn about schedule or anything you've seen so far. All right. This is our last meeting for 2025. Our next SBC meeting will be January 15th. And then we'll continue on a monthly basis with that draft GMP anticipated mid-February.
I'd like to make sure that we get the GMP in place to be able to share at least the draft of it with the SBC on the February 12th meeting.
Sounds great. And then last is just our reminder about this video and others being on our project website as well as YouTube channel, where we've continued to put up photos of the construction progress so that the community can stay informed. And unless there was anything else, I think that's all we had for tonight.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you to the committee. Thanks for those updates. Very excited to see the plans and renderings and very excited to see the site progressing and can't wait to see things start going up. Appreciate the committee's questions around timing and in particular, and Mike, your thoughts there as well as the others. Obviously, that's of great concern to the committee and the plans that we have with the school department, and clearly we can't sacrifice on quality and also keeping in mind the cost. So it's good that some of those had a positive cost implications. But appreciate the updates, and we'll all be following closely, and for those folks who have questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Happy
holiday.
holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everybody.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Brandon, thank you for the shovels. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
No problem.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.